So I want to go from that to one more recruiting topic. Then I want to talk a little bit of Big 12. So I put some film in front of you of a 2023 quarterback out of Springfield, Massachusetts. His father played briefly at Oklahoma in 1990. His name is William Watson. His father's name is William Watson II, so William Watson III is the quarterback. Started as a true freshman at Springfield, Mass. And in watching the film, two things that I want to point out just off top. One, they run Oklahoma's system, right? They run everything that Lincoln runs. They teach everything that Lincoln teaches. Two, he's 15, okay? Now, his dad is coaching, right? But you tell me what you saw, because I like the film. I got some hesitations about the release, but you were the first person to tell me, hey, RJ, the release is something you can work on. The accuracy is what you cannot teach or what you really have a really hard time teaching.
Yeah, I mean, I think anyone that says you can easily teach a quarterback to throw a football into a tight window is just absolutely out of their minds. I mean, I'm someone, like I told you pre-show, that when I'm evaluating quarterback talent, I need to see, okay, can this guy hit someone in the window? And so if ball placement is there, then I go all the way down to the rest. But I prioritize accuracy as my number one thing when I'm looking at a quarterback. And what I see from William Watson III is accuracy right off the jump. And I mean, I should note to the fans that are listening and they're perking their ears up because, whoa. I mean, Caleb Williams is already in 2021. Quinn Ewers is our guy in 2022. Why are we already talking about a 2023 kid? The quarterback recruiting never stops. And you never know what's going to happen when it comes to Quinn Ewers. So in 2023, I mean, this is definitely a guy that I could be seeing in the running towards the top of the QB rankings list. Now, specifically, the release can be fixed. I think it's a little long, kind of got a baseball throwy vibe to it, maybe a little bit longer than that. But for him to be placing the ball into windows like he is here, and most of these throws, for everyone listening, are 25, 30-plus yards down the field, is incredibly impressive for someone his age. Now, as he adds size and he learns the game, he's going to get even better. He can probably find a little bit better ways to hit guys in stride, but most of the time he's allowing receivers to get to the green grass. And so, like I was telling you, man, if you see that accuracy showing from a guy this age, you definitely got to perk your ears up and keep an eye on him, because I'm very impressed with what I'm seeing so far, and I'm excited to see what he comes up with now that we're going to be able to see a little bit more of him moving forward. But I would keep him on the board right now, especially when you talk about the OU ties, but I'm sure you can dive into a little bit more on that.
Right. Well, I do want to just get some more of his credentials out there first. I mentioned shorter right now, but he's 15, right? 6'1", about $170 with room to grow. I still don't necessarily love the release, but again, something we could work on. What I thought was most interesting about him is how quickly other schools have got a hold of him and made it clear that they want him, because that's a really good indicator of what coaches think, and what coaches think is what matters. So he got a phone call in May from Don Brown, and the first question he asked him was, did you finish your biology homework? How'd you do? And he's like, yes, sir, I did. Good, because now I feel better about offering you as a quarterback at the University of Michigan. All right, so that's one. Tennessee's also gotten in there with Chris Winkie, who he has an opportunity to go play. And Ohio State is sniffing, right? Boston College has an offer in. UMass is UMass, but every offer counts, especially for 2023 at this point. And then Max Preps selected him as a preseason sophomore high school All-American on the second team, right? Which I thought was also indicative of a dude that passed for 3,000 yards last year with 38 touchdowns as a true freshman. All right? I second straight Division III title for Springfield Central Mass. So I'm watching him. I like the way that he moves. I love his vision. He's tearing apart zone. He hits guys as soon as they hit the window. And there's a couple of throws that I would like to see him put in front of receivers to keep running. But, I mean, again, I'm being overly critical because I like the kid. And in talking with you, we're like, I don't know, RJ seems to put most of them right where the kids can keep running. I don't know. I'm like, because look, if you're going to put a kid in front of people, especially this early, he needs to have the goods, and that's what I was really relying on your evaluation for, is to make sure I'm seeing what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I mean, I see a couple of throws to the back shoulder that the receiver's either in the green space or the cornerback is in a position where the back shoulder throw is probably not the move. But I mean, if the worst thing you can say about his accuracy is that sometimes he hits the back shoulder or he drags the receiver just a tad bit when he's throwing the ball 35-plus yards consistently. I mean, I just have to assume the kid's arm's getting tired of some of these games. Like, he's chucking the ball. Like you said, they run a Lincoln Riley-style offense. He's asked to throw the ball consistently down the field. And so maybe that's something to consider. Maybe it's a fatigue issue in some of these games where the accuracy kind of dips just a tad because he's starting to tire out. But for him to be making these throws and for that to be kind of one of the main criticisms, that just shows that he's leaps and bounds ahead of where the other prospects are in his recruiting class.
I missed one offer. It'd be the University of Pittsburgh, and we're going to be comparing kids like William Watson III, his nickname is Pop, but to guys like Archie Manning, right? And Archie Manning is going to be what everybody's talking about or Arch Manning, I should say, for reasons that I think we can all pick out. His grandfather's Archie Manning. His father's Cooper Manning. His uncles are Eli and Peyton. They both have Super Bowls, among other things. And he's been showing out down there in Newman in New Orleans. But, I'm going to be interested to see how he continues to develop, whether or not there's a transfer to a larger school, to a larger classification, to get more exposure and to perhaps raise his profile. But, one of the things I like doing on this show, and particularly in general, is to clue our listeners in on who's doing what when and how quickly they should be on board with a kid. So thank you for indulging me on that. I appreciate that. I wanted to go from that to a point you brought up, which is Texas Christian a problem this year and definitely a problem next year? Or is Texas Christian just definitely a problem next year? Because, I was thinking about this. Two of the three most, I think, influential grad transfers, and I guess four, two of the four come from or have Big 12 ties. So Trey Sermon could be the most consequential grad transfer or transfer at all across the board from going to Oklahoma to Ohio State at a position of need for them in a year where they expect to try to win a national championship. And then we got JT Daniels going from USC to Georgia. We got Jabril Cox going grad transfer from North Dakota State to LSU, national champion and national champion grad transfer. And then we got Marcel Brooks enrolling at Texas Christian, which basically gives Gary Patterson 2 5-stars by default in a month's time. That's on top of everything else we know that Gary Patterson's defense can do. And it feels like they could be 2014 good in 2021.
Yeah, so I was telling you before the show, we could do an entire podcast on how this offseason has either shaped or hurt the other teams in the Big 12 to contend with Oklahoma.
And we will.
And TCU's got to be one of the most beneficial of this offseason. Go ahead with what you're going to say.
No, I'm saying we will do that podcast. We will devote an entire podcast to that because I think that's a fascinating topic to unspool. But I did want to focus on Texas Christian, so please.
Yeah, so, you talked about it. So TCU gets Zach Evans out of the blue. Apparently, according to our guy, Jeremy Clark, who's done an outstanding job, you all should go check him out on Horned Frog Blitz. He reported all of these news, by the way. And he was like, look, TCU coaches are telling me they're about to get a dude that everyone thinks they don't have a shot at. And then, of course, they go get Zach Evans out of the blue, number one running back in the class. They go get Marcel Brooks, who TCU recruited heavily when he was a prospect, and now he transfers to the program out of LSU after seeing a good amount of time on the field. We don't know what his eligibility status is going to be, so that kind of builds into the storyline of next year. But, this year, we have to talk about it. They just landed J.D. Spielman out of Nebraska as a transfer, and that is a guy that in his career has 170 catches for 2,546 yards and 15 touchdowns. So this is a dude we're talking about. And then on top of that, I was reading this from Jeremy's work just today. TCU's class last year was supposedly the highest rank that Gary Patterson has ever brought in. I have to assume that if Duggan can figure it out next season, TCU, if not this year, next year definitely could be giving Oklahoma some major issues within the conference.
So I want to also add in there about J.D. Spielman. The numbers that you just rattle off make him the third best receiver all time at Nebraska, which I understand. They ran the bone, right? We get it. They ran triple option, but it still matters for me, especially in this age of Scott Frost. And I thought that perhaps he wanted to go home, right? Because this is Rick Spielman's kid. This is Chris Spielman's nephew, right? So you can understand how, dad is general manager for the Minnesota Vikings and uncle is an All-American and all-timer at Ohio State. No, he's going to come to the Big 12 and try to show out, man. So I was wondering who's going to be the answer for Jalen Reagor. And I'm like, well, actually, we have a dude. Oh, man, help me. What's his name? Because he went roughshod over Texas.
Quentin Johnson?
No, that's 4-star that they got. This guy was on the field.
Yeah.
He was on the field last year. I got to look it up. It's going to bug me. But, no, while I'm looking that up, I did want to ask you if Max Duggan can figure it out as a big one, do we still have a question about whether or not TCU has a quarterback? Are we still questioning that?
I have to assume that the Duggan situation is the big key here because let's just say, hypothetically, TCU has to wait for Brooke to be eligible until next year. So Spielman and Evans wait around, and they get all these guys in that recruiting class so highly ranked developed into sophomores next season. Well, Duggan at that time would be a junior, right? And his freshman year was not outstanding. He did give Oklahoma a little bit of trouble in Norman, but, I mean, it's been well documented publicly how bad he was accuracy-wise on the football field. And like I was telling you, I'm someone that very much values accuracy from my quarterbacks. And so if Duggan is not producing specifically in the accuracy situation of things, I mean, Jerry Kill is coming in as the new quote-unquote head coach of the offense for Gary Patterson. And Jerry Kill is specifically the reason why they got J.D. Spielman, because Kill is formerly at Minnesota. And so if Jerry Kill, who is, again, quote-unquote, the head coach of the offense for TCU now, sees a problem from Duggan in this accuracy situation, I have to believe he's going to potentially explore benching him. I mean, this is all drastic to say right now because we don't even know what the kid's going to look like as a sophomore. But TCU is also taking 2 quarterbacks right now in this class. And I very much believe that TCU is a quarterback away from getting back to the Big 12 title game, especially if Oklahoma State doesn't really do anything and all their guys leave. And Texas, of course, loses Sam Ehlinger and some of those other defensive backs on the roster. I mean, we're talking about next year as an opportunity for TCU to meet Oklahoma in the Big 12 title game. And if Duggan is the issue that prevents that, I think that that's a problem that will have to be addressed, and I don't think it'll be addressed hesitantly from Mr. Jerry Kill, who is helping tremendously with TCU in this revamped contending roster.
Tay Barber is the wide receiver whose name I forgot. 5 catches for 94 yards against Texas in the upset,
yes.
And was slow by injury, which is why I think so many people forgot that he was there. But between Tay Barber, Quentin Johnson, and now J.D. Spielman, if he's immediately eligible, you have hey, Duggan, this is your opportunity. Take the job, right? I mean, you took it last year. Make sure you retain it because Matthew Baldwin is medically retired, right? So they got to take 2 quarterbacks is one way of looking at that. But if Jerry Kill is the reason why you are able to be this good with his Big Ten ties and whatnot, having been a head coach at Minnesota, or you're just good enough to go get, these transfers, which I'm glad that Gary Patterson decided to start going this way. I'm excited when Texas Christian is good, because playoff P is a lot of fun. And, playoff P is like Big 12 P. He talks to people. He has great quotes. Like, he still got my all-timer in a postgame. It's like, Baker Mayfield was one thing. But this kid, Kyler Murray, it's recess and it's full blast. Like, he's basically sitting in the postgame. He's sweating. He's wiping off sweat, talking about, we had him. We had him. He's just getting frustrated because he's like, anybody else, he's dead to rights. Anybody else, we destroy. This kid, though, just carves us up. And then we got guys doing DBZ celebrations in the end zone. I was so excited. Now that game is back at Amon G. Carter. And we'll see how it goes. But, I'm excited about what Texas Christian could be. No, I'm glad you brought that up. No, we will definitely do that podcast. Colin Kennedy. Read his work, OUinsider.com. He stays working, stays on top of the offers going out, stays on top of the commitments going in. Tremendous when it comes to Big 12 basketball and OU basketball recruiting, as much as, man, there's been some moving and shaking going on over there. Colin is at CKennedy247 on the Twitters. CKennedy247 on the Twitters. I have deleted my Twitter account. Colin, thanks so much, man.
Always fun. Let's do it again soon.
Right on, brother.